All right, students. So this week, we're going to keep going on the one-step equations. But this time, we're going to work on multiplication and division. So last week, we were working on adding and subtracting to find that value for that variable. This week, we're going to find the value for the variable, but using our multiplication and division. All right, so remember the goal of solving equations is finding the value for the unknown variable. And to do this, you need to isolate the variable using inverse operations, right? And we're going to remember what that is. Inverse ops, okay? All right, so when you state the inverse operation, so add 23, the opposite is subtract 23, right? Subtract 18, then you add 18. You multiply negative 15, you divide negative 15. Notice that the sign didn't change, right? It's just the operation. Divide by 8, well, then you are going to multiply by 8. All right, so let's do some examples. So it says example 1, solve 8 times x equals 56. So because 8 times x is multiplying, then the opposite of multiplication is division. So you divide by 8. All right, so now 50, now this cancels, right? 8 and x is by itself, and then 56 divided by 8 is 7. All right, so now in this case, this 5 is dividing 8, so the opposite would be to multiply it. Multiply. So to get rid of this 5 over here, we do the opposite. So it says, where is the variable? What is done to it? How can I undo that? Apply to both sides, solve and simplify. Okay, so apply to both sides means that in this case you divide by 8. In this case, you gotta multiply by 5 because this is dividing. So the opposite it's multiplying. This cancels this 5 on this side and it leaves a alone. And then 12 times 5 is 60. And that's your answer. All right, now it says check. Okay, let's check. What does that mean? So we found that 7 times 8 is 56. And then is that right? Yes, it is right. And then we found out that 60 divided by 5 is 12. Is that true? Well, yeah, it is true. And that's how you check. You just plug in back the number that you find. All right, let's keep going. Now, what happens when you have a fraction? So something like that. Well, we multiply by the inverse, the reciprocals of that fraction. So used to solve multiplication and division equations that contains fractions. So that's a big word here. Find the multiplicative inverse or reciprocal of that. So the reciprocal is just turning it over, like 3 over 1. In this case, it's 7 over 5. In this case, it's 5 over 2. It's just flipping it. All right. So let's solve one. So it says the coefficient of t is 3 over 5. The coefficient means the number that's in front of the letter or the variable. The reciprocal of 3 over 5, well, if you flip it, it's 5 over 3. And then we flip it here. So this is how it's done. So 5 over 3. Now notice that they're reciprocal of each other. So if you multiply across, you will get the same number for numerator and denominator, and that means that it's a whole, so it's 1. So that's why they cancel. This cancels on this side, 5 over 3. You multiply, and then you multiply these two numbers and divide by the one with on the denominator. Because, or you can multiply across. So 6 times 5 is 30, 1 times 3 is 3, and 30 divided by 3 is 10. And that is your number. Okay, let's try it here. So multiply by the reciprocal on both sides. We put a 1 underneath here. This cancels the side, so t equals that times that and that times that. 8 times 7 is 56 divided by 2, and 56 divided by 2. And then you divide. So 56 divided by 2 is 28, and that's your answer. Okay, so that's called the reciprocal. So let's try some reciprocal ones. So that's times 7 over 1 on this side, times 7 over 1 on this side. We put a 1 underneath that number. That goes away, and then t equals 3 times 7 is 21 over 1, which is the same thing as 21. Okay, then we try this one. 5 over 4. 5 over 4 on this side. That goes away on this side because that's the reciprocal. And then over 1. And then you multiply numerator. So that's 8 times 5. That's 40. And then 1 times 4 is 4. And then 40 divided by 4 is 10. And that's your answer. Okay. All right. Let's do multiple type of problems here. So in this case, you are multiplying. The opposite of multiplication is division. So you divide to get rid of that 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1, so 1a. And then 18 divided by 3 is 6. And that's your answer. All right. So this is dividing, so the opposite of multiplying. So you multiply by 4 on both sides. That cancels, and b equals 12 times 4 is 48. And that's the answer there. All right, in this case, they're flipping, like it's flipped, so the equal sign is on, I mean, their numbers are flipped. So it's the same thing though. You're dividing here, you want to get rid of the one with the letter. That's dividing, so opposite is multiplying. That goes away, and then f equals 12. And that's your answer there. In this case also, you are getting rid of always the one with the letter. You're isolating the letter. So divided by 6 on both sides, that goes away, and y equals 8. Here also, you divide by the one with the letter, a equals 11. Here you're multiplying, so times 7 times 7, and then g equals 49, and that's your answer. How do you check this? Well, you plug back in for g. So 49 divided by 7, is that true? Well, 7 equals 7, yes, so it is true. All right, okay, so let's do one more like this. So this is dividing, so you are multiplying on each side to get rid of that 3, that goes away. X equals 3 times 21. It's 63. And that's it. All right, so let's do one more with the fractions. Just to remind you, when you have a fraction, the immediate thing is to flip the fraction and multiply on each side. Goes away on this side, t equals, put a 1 underneath, 6 times 5 is 30, and 1 times 3 is 3, and that is 10. That's your answer. Okay? All right, I hope this helps.